From as early as I can remember, I always felt like something was off in my family. My brother and I were night and day. It wasn't just a difference in personality, it felt like we came from completely different worlds. I had this deep, instinctive love for animals, dogs especially, while he had a vehement, almost irrational hatred for them. Growing up, it was like my brother was the golden child. It was as if the world revolved around him. My parents showered him with praise, admiration, and attention. He was the one that could do no wrong in their eyes. And me, well, I was just the other kid, the one who couldn't seem to do anything right, no matter how hard I tried. I felt like a stranger in my own home, an outsider desperately trying to fit in. The first time I laid eyes on Bim, my dog, it's as if time stopped for a moment. My parents had taken us to the pet market, and when I saw him, a little light brown puppy with those big, soulful eyes that seemed to speak to me, there was no doubt in my mind. This was my dog. The puppy was looking straight at me, almost like he was waiting for me. He had this mischievous spark in his eyes, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I couldn't resist. From that moment on, Bim became my companion, my joy, and my source of comfort. He was playful, quick to learn, and the way he made me laugh with his antics was pure magic. He became my only real friend, someone who understood me in ways no one else did. But that's where things got complicated. My brother, he hated Bim. I'm not talking about a mild dislike. No, it was much worse. It was pure, unrelenting hatred. The first day we brought Bim home, my brother looked at him like he was a threat. He called dogs filthy creatures, and every time Bim came near him, he would make this disgusted noise, like he was about to be poisoned. I couldn't understand it. Bim was just a puppy. He wasn't doing anything wrong. Yet, my brother couldn't stand him. It made no sense to me. But it was clear that my brother didn't want Bim in the house, and he made it known every chance he got. Still, my parents stood by him, always. It was like they couldn't see my side of things. I felt invisible, like a shadow in my own house. While my brother lived in the spotlight, he could do no wrong. My every mistake, no matter how small, was met with criticism. It was always him they praised, him they protected, while I was the one who was always striving to be seen, to be heard, to be enough. But nothing ever seemed to be enough for them. It felt like I was fighting a losing battle. Then, one day, everything changed. I came home from school and saw Bim lying on the lawn. At first, I thought he was just resting, but as I got closer, my heart sank. He was gasping for breath, his tiny body trembling uncontrollably. There was blood on his fur, and his belly was covered in bruises. A deep gash marred his side. I called his name, but he couldn't move. It was like his little body just couldn't hold on anymore. My hands shook as I tried to comfort him, but it was too late. Bim, my loyal friend, was dying. I turned around, and there he was, my brother, standing a few feet away. His hands were stained with blood. I don't think I've ever been so numb in my life. I don't even know how to describe the rage that washed over me. My mind couldn't process it. What had happened? What had he done to Bim? What did you do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I could barely hold it together. He didn't respond at first. Then, the most chilling smile crept across his face, a smile that was all malice. I hate dogs. You can love them all you want, but they have no place in this house. And I don't want to see it anymore. The world stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The person who I thought was my brother had just killed my best friend. Bim had been nothing but good to him, and yet he was gone because my brother couldn't tolerate him. He was gone, and my family didn't seem to care. When my parents came home and I told them what had happened, I thought they would stand up for me, defend me, but they didn't. They didn't even bat an eye. My dad sighed and muttered, "Your brother did this because he doesn't like dogs. You can't force him to love them." My mom added, "It's just a dog. Don't make such a big deal out of it. Your brother had his reasons." I couldn't believe it. My heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces, but my family couldn't even offer sympathy. Instead, they excused my brother's actions as if they were justifiable. To them, I was overreacting. To them, I was just a problem. The realization hit me like a cold slap. This family wasn't the place I thought it was. I would never be the golden child. I would always be second, always be overlooked. No matter what I did, I could never earn the kind of love my brother got. That night, I couldn't sleep. The grief and anger gnawed at me relentlessly. I kept replaying the image of Bim's lifeless body in my mind, and each time, it felt like a new stab to my heart. My family just didn't get it. They didn't understand the loss I was feeling, the emptiness that had replaced everything I once held dear. The following day, the atmosphere at home was unbearable. It was like a coldness had settled in, a chasm between me and my family that would never be filled. I wanted to confront my brother, to demand an explanation for what he had done. But what was the point? He was never going to face the consequences. My parents were always going to protect him, and I would always be the outsider. It was clear now. I had lost my only friend, and nothing about my family was ever going to change. It was a cruel realization, but it was the truth. I wasn't good enough, and I never would be. The days that followed were unbearable. The silence in the house was deafening. I couldn't shake the image of Bim, his tiny body lying still on the lawn, and no one seemed to care. My brother continued on as if nothing had happened, like nothing had changed. He didn't even apologize. Why would he? My parents stood by him, as they always did. Nothing ever seemed to shake his golden boy status in their eyes. It was like I was the one who was wrong, like I was the problem for feeling the way I did, but I couldn't stop feeling it. Every time I looked at my brother, I saw the blood on his hands, and I couldn't let go of the anger that bubbled inside me. But I learned quickly that there was no room for my grief in my family. My parents didn't want to hear about it. Every time I tried to talk about Bim, they brushed me off, telling me to let it go. "It's just a dog," my father would say, shaking his head. "You need to get over it." My mother would always tell me, "Your brother's been going through a lot too. Don't make him feel worse." It wasn't about making him feel worse. It was about the fact that my brother had murdered my dog, and no one seemed to care. No one saw what had happened for what it was. They saw it as a small thing, just a dog, just a moment of frustration. But to me, it was everything. Bim had been my only friend, the only one who truly understood me. And now, he was gone, taken away by someone who was supposed to love me. The injustice of it all hurt more than I could ever explain. Every night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the emotions inside me. The anger didn't go away. No matter how much I tried to ignore it, it simmered beneath the surface, just waiting to explode. And every time I looked at my brother, that rage flared up. I wanted to confront him, wanted to scream at him, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. No one would listen. No one ever listened to me. The truth was, my family had already made their choice. They had chosen him. They had always chosen him, and that was something I couldn't change. But I knew that something had to change for me. I couldn't keep living in a house where I was constantly pushed to the side, where my feelings didn't matter. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay when it wasn't. So, I made a decision. It wasn't something I planned, but one day, the anger and sadness were too much. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to leave. I had to get away from my brother, from my parents, from the house that had never been a home to me. I had to stop living for them. I had to live for me. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay in that house another minute. So, that afternoon, I packed my things and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My heart was heavy, and I was terrified. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to live on my own. The first few days were a blur. I stayed in a cheap motel, unsure of what to do next. The loneliness was crushing. There were nights when I just sat on the bed, staring at the walls, wondering if I had made a huge mistake. Maybe I wasn't ready to be on my own. Maybe I had been too hasty. But I told myself I couldn't go back. The thought of returning to that house, to the same pain and indifference, was worse than being alone. I had to find my way. I had to figure out how to survive on my own, even if it meant struggling at first. I had no other choice. Weeks passed, and slowly, I began to adjust. I found a small apartment in a part of town that was far from my family's neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I learned how to cook for myself, how to pay bills, how to live without anyone telling me what to do or how to feel. I was completely alone, but in a strange way, I started to feel free. I wasn't constantly being judged, constantly being overlooked. For the first time, I was doing things for myself. It wasn't easy, but each day, I grew a little more confident. I found a job at a local diner, working long shifts, doing whatever I could to get by. The work was hard, but it kept me busy, and the people there were kind. I made a few friends, and for the first time in years, I felt like I mattered to someone. I wasn't just the second child, the invisible one. I was me. I was finally learning to live for myself. Then, out of the blue, I got a message from my mother. It had been months since I'd heard from her, and I had no intention of responding. But I couldn't help myself. I opened it. She said that my brother had been going through a rough time. She explained that he had been under a lot of stress, and that things had been difficult for him. As always, she blamed everything on external factors, on everything but the truth. And she went on, "You need to understand. Your brother is struggling. He's just having a hard time, and it's all too much for him." My heart sank. After everything that had happened, after the way he had treated me, after the way he had killed Bim, she still couldn't see him for who he truly was. She still made excuses for him, as if nothing mattered except his feelings. But the worst part was that she couldn't even acknowledge the pain I had been through. My suffering didn't seem to matter in the face of his struggles. I didn't reply to her message. There was nothing to say. I had already accepted that they would never see me for who I truly was, and that I couldn't change them. Instead, I focused on myself. I threw myself into my work, my new life. I began to form connections with people who cared about me, not because I was their child or sibling, but because I was me. They saw me. They valued me for who I was, not for what I could do to earn their approval. I found a sense of peace in these new relationships. I realized that family wasn't just about blood. It was about the people who chose to stand by you, who chose to love you, even when it was hard. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need my brother's forgiveness. What I needed was to accept myself and to build the life I deserved. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. I wasn't bound by anyone's expectations. I was free to be who I wanted to be, and that was enough. The days grew into weeks, and life on my own wasn't as terrifying as I had expected. It was hard, yes, but it was also liberating. The space I had created for myself felt real, and that was something I had never had at home. I learned the basic things I had never been taught: how to manage my own finances, how to keep up with rent, how to cook meals that weren't just quick fixes. And yet, with all this newfound independence, I was still haunted by the past. Every holiday, the absence of family gnawed at me. I could almost taste the warmth of the gatherings I'd once known, the laughter, the noise, the sense of connection. But deep down, I knew that if I went back, nothing would have changed. They would still defend my brother. They would still look the other way when I expressed my pain. The ache of knowing that there was no true place for me, even with blood ties, kept me awake at night. Then came the message from my mother, months after I had walked out. At first, I hesitated to open it, but curiosity got the better of me. She said that she had been thinking about me, that she missed me, and she was sorry for how things had turned out, especially for my brother's actions. That was it. There was no acknowledgement of the grief I had carried for years. There was no apology for how I had been treated. No understanding of the deep pain I'd experienced when Bim was taken from me. Just a long explanation of how hard things had been for my brother. The message, like all the others, was about him. Even when she claimed to miss me, it still felt like she was writing from his side of the story. The pity and sympathy for his struggles seemed endless, even as I stood in the ruins of what we were supposed to be. I put my phone down, an icy feeling settling in my chest. I had known it, but still, seeing the words made me realize nothing was going to change. But I wasn't going to respond to her plea. Instead, I took a breath and focused on what I could control. The emptiness I felt was no longer filled with a desperate need for approval. It was just the quiet, a space for me to reflect and grow. I started making connections that mattered, true friendships, not built on blood but on shared values. People who understood me for who I was, not who I was supposed to be. And then, one day, out of the blue, Kelly called. She had finally left my brother, fully freed herself from the hold he had over her. Her voice, when she spoke, was filled with strength. "I'm proud of you," she said, out of nowhere, "for walking away. I've done the same. You know, I'm starting over. Really. I've moved by the coast, got a new job. It's hard, but I'm building a life I want." Her words caught me off guard, but in the best way possible. Kelly had been through hell with my brother. She knew what it was like to be suffocated by someone who demanded your loyalty, but never returned it. Hearing her voice, strong and sure, reminded me of my own strength. I hadn't just left my family, I had taken back control of my life, and she had done the same. We both had. I listened to her talk about her new life, her excitement palpable as she shared her plans. It was so different from the miserable existence she had lived with my brother. And in that moment, it hit me. I was not alone. Kelly had taken the same step I had. She had found her path, and in doing so, she was helping me find mine. The months continued to pass. I had come to realize that moving forward wasn't just about filling the empty space left by my family. It was about finding purpose in my life. I worked hard at my job, kept building the relationships that mattered, and slowly but surely, the dark cloud of my past began to lift. It wasn't that the pain disappeared, it was still there, somewhere deep inside, but it wasn't my constant companion anymore. Still, there were moments of weakness, like when I saw people with their families around the holidays. The warmth of their connections tugged at something deep in me, something I had spent so long trying to ignore. It reminded me of the void I still felt, the family I had walked away from. But each time, I reminded myself that the family I had left behind wasn't the one I had chosen, and it wasn't the family that would ever choose me. They would never love me the way I needed. Then came another unexpected message from my mother. This one was different from the others. She said she missed me. She said she was sorry for everything, even though it felt like the apology was still so vague. Still, something in her words felt more genuine this time. I wasn't ready to let her back into my life, especially not after all the years of dismissing me, but I knew I had come a long way. "I'm not ready yet," I texted back, "but thank you for reaching out. It means something to me." For once, her words didn't send me into a spiral of guilt or longing. Instead, they felt like a step in the right direction. It wasn't closure. It wasn't the answer I'd always hoped for, but it was acknowledgement. And for now, that was enough. Time kept moving forward, and I kept going with it. I wasn't trying to please anyone anymore. The friends I had made, the life I was building, all felt more authentic than anything I'd had before. The emptiness I had once felt began to fade. I didn't need approval anymore, not from my parents, not from my brother. I was living for me. One day, I ran into Kelly again, in a small coffee shop in town. We sat down together, both of us a little older, a little wiser. She told me about her new life by the coast, how she had embraced her freedom and was finally living for herself. She seemed at peace, more than I had ever seen her. I'm proud of you, I told her, feeling the weight of those words. You're doing it. You really are. And I think I am too. Her smile lit up her face. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy for both of us. We weren't the people we had once been. We had grown, evolved, and embraced the lives we deserved. And somehow, in that moment, I felt like I had finally found what I was looking for, a sense of peace, a sense of belonging, not with the family I was born into, but with the one I had chosen for myself. As the years passed, the pain of the past softened. The decisions I had made, the steps I had taken to leave, were no longer signs of weakness but of strength. I didn't need the validation of my family. I didn't need to return to a life that never truly accepted me. I had chosen myself, and that was all that mattered. And so, as I looked toward the future, I knew that my path was mine to walk. I wasn't seeking approval from anyone anymore. The weight of their expectations no longer crushed me. I had walked away. I had built a new life, and I had finally chosen my own happiness. That was the greatest gift I could have ever given myself. This version tightens up the pacing and removes the repetitive elements, focusing more on the protagonist's personal growth and moments of change. Kelly's role becomes a reflection of the protagonist's own transformation, and the realization of self-worth becomes more evident as the narrative unfolds. This should feel more engaging. Now let me know your thoughts.